If you clicked on this video because you want to know what the heck a Fangoji is, prepare for a ride. If you're here from Twitter, welcome to my empty channel with this singular video. I originally wasn't going to make a video like this, but as I've pondered over the things I've seen over the past year or two, I finally decided to record this. Before I actually say what I want though, I want to state that this is not a recap of controversies surrounding this community or the people within it, rather a recap of my own experiences within this community, and as such, this video is more of a commentary or explanation rather than an essay with hard facts and proof. The purpose of this video is to serve as a vent of my personal thoughts and opinions about the writing and creations from the fandom, so I ask that you treat them as such. Thank you! The best way I can answer the question, what even is a Fangoji, is to simply say, a Sonic OC but Godzilla, and the worst way I can answer it is, MCU multiverse but with Godzilla. A Fangoji is a fan version of Godzilla, and the term Fangoji comes from its Japanese name, Gojira, and fan, obviously, mashed together into one term. If you still feel lost, if you've ever watched Tales from Monster Island by Quasis, or seen those What If Godzilla Was Realistic art videos, you have technically consumed Fangoji media before. And by technically, I'm heavy with that technicality because there's one main thing that separates these works from what I'm going to be discussing today: design work. The Fangoji definition that most artists within the Godzilla fandom will recognize, including myself, is a deviation both design-wise and canon-wise from the official character. Many Fangoji stories will take their own personal spin on Godzilla and make it their own character with unique visual traits and quirks. Oftentimes, people will pull from scrapped concepts from the movies, and other times they'll take creative liberties and do thorough research to form their own basis for their characters. With a character, lore usually comes with, and that's when a Fangoji really shines and makes itself unique. People have done many twists and spins on Godzilla's backstory, some even taking it as far as to make their own stories completely separate from canon, yet still able to make it work through dedication. And you may be wondering, well, do you have a Fangoji? Well, yes, I do. And I need to pelt him with 100 bricks. Anyway, while I love the work and love that goes into all of these creations and stories, there's a side of this community that I cannot ignore. The attention seekers. Oh boy. Oh boy. You guys are not ready at all. Whether they're doing it to rage bait, or if they have genuine criticisms, haters have been and always will be a part of every fandom. And this, obviously, includes the Fangoji community. Over the past couple of years, I've witnessed many cases where Fangojis are targeted and ostracized for one thing: their design. Fangojis have been made fun of or highly criticized either by other Fangoji creators for not looking Godzilla enough, or by outsiders who don't know much about the community in general due to its niche content, and so they outwardly mock the very idea of Fangojis themselves, whether or not they align with quote-unquote the idea of Godzilla. I'm going to start off this section by saying that because this video is not a recapitulation of drama or controversy within the fanbase, I will also not be focusing on or commenting on specific topics that have occurred there. While I do believe that no Fangoji nor their creator should be bullied or harassed over design choices, what I'm going to bring up is only meant to prove a specific point to support my beliefs and opinion. I could spend all day speaking on what I think should be considered a valid Fangoji, but what I truly want to talk about is attention seekers and attention seekers only, i.e. the pygmies of Fangojis. If you've ever heard of a Mary Sue OC, that's basically what these Fangojis are, except in character design form. Their purpose is to get you to hit the like button on Twitter because hey, that looks cool! And trust me, there's nothing wrong with Mary Sue OCs, but because of other pressing issues I'll address, this is relevant. A character design is always the basis for a character themselves. A design can clue you in on how a character thinks, acts, and overall how they perceive the world around them. If a Fangoji has many scars on them, for example, it tells you that they've been in many fights and battles. Whether or not they are victorious depends on the lore itself, but I'll get to that later. If a Fangoji has gills, it tells you that they are mostly built for an aquatic life, feathers, bird-like in nature, tough scales, reptilian-like, etc. The most important step, though, is to make every design element work in your character's favor. If you wanted your Fangoji to look tough and grisly, you'd give them a broad, muscly look, some scars, large claws, and armor-like scales. If you want your Fangoji to be quick and agile, you'd make them slender, with smaller claws and less durable or a heavy appearance to give them the idea that they're good at running from trouble instead of engaging in it. The problem I've seen with some Fangojis is that they're confusing. They make a circle and then try and fit it into the square hole. Again, making these obtuse design choices is not the issue, more so that it's only for the attention. They don't love this character and want to draw it out of genuine passion or care for what they're creating. They're doing it for an audience. They're mix and matching separate designs that work well enough on their own and smashing them together because they believe it'll get them some likes on a social media platform. A pro tip of character design, if you want it to be popular, is to make it memorable. Characters like Pokemon, for example, are easily memorable and distinguishable because of their simplicity. They're so simple, in fact, that many people are able to tell them apart from their silhouettes alone. At the end of the day, character design is oftentimes the base of a character, and if you have a less than favorable design, it can become a struggle to work with when building a story around it. Cluttering a design because you're too overcome with the urge to make it stand out and be unique is not a smart choice when there are other ways you can make your character stand out amongst the rest. My favorite way to do this is through character writing. I think, overall, there's a lot more I have to say about character writing than I ever will for design in any capacity, because for the art itself, I can give the benefit of the doubt from this section specifically. Where design doesn't hook me, the writing of a character still can and will get me invested into a story. Writing itself is far less strict than creating a design because there are many, many ways to express a character story. A popular form of writing I've seen in the Fangoji community is creating comics, combining both art and writing. I've also seen prose, scripts, dialogue exchanges, roleplays, ARGs, a lot. I'll dive into some of these and explain what makes them great and what makes them not so great within the hands of the Fangoji community. I'm going to start off with the most popular format, comics, because not only do I have experience in this field, it's also one of my personal favorites when it comes to representing characters. As I've stated before, the combination of both art and writing can help support a character's design when seen through an unfolding story. Speaking of Fangoji, other kaiju or human characters react to different situations and scenarios through both art and writing direction gives them more depth than art could do by itself. Through comics, you can begin to attach visual symbolism, themes, and ideas that all connect. The way themes are presented in comics, and in every format of writing, make or break a story, and unfortunately, this is where many comics fall apart when it comes to writing consistency. And I'm not going to pretend I'm not guilty of this myself, because, for those who don't know, back in 2023, I rushed into a Pokemon webcomic with no scripting and little plan for art direction, and eventually, from my obsession with seeing a few new readers every week, I quickly burned myself out and lost interest in creating it. I was rushing to create pages for my Thursday deadline and never created a backlog either, so I was just really going along with whatever my first idea was, instead of taking my time and letting my thoughts simmer for a bit. When you rush into something like comicking, you need to have a plan, or else everything will fall apart. Do you plan on posting every week? Make a backlog, aka a bunch of pages that will remain unreleased until they're scheduled to be uploaded for at least a month or two before you start posting. Plan on posting every day? Well, finish the arc you're creating before you post anything. My failed webcomic was a learning experience for me, and because of that, I used what I had learned to make my Fangoji comic that I created later that year better. I finished almost every page before I started posting it, and I had scripted the entire thing beforehand. Even though I didn't follow it to a T, I still managed to get what I wanted to across instead of rushing through with no plan and shoving things where they didn't fit. Another way to write your own character is through prose. Prose is my absolute favorite way to characterize. You can delve into the mind of a character and explore their reactions to different situations and more specifics than you could through drawing an expression on a character. You can tell a far more complex and detailed story, and you don't have to worry about the mistranslation of art panels or visuals in general. Prose includes both role-playing and dialogue into one, so while prose is more of an umbrella term, I'll speak on these two examples as well. But before that, I have to talk about one aspect of writing that I feel so many Fangoji creators feel so abysmally in that I feel like I failed in attempting to make this entire thing in the first place if I, just don't talk about it. And that's tragic backstories. Oh my god. Oh boy, where do I begin when it comes to the plague that is trauma within the writing spaces of the Fangoji community? Adding traumatic backstories, no matter the fandom, has always been considered a staple when it comes to creating original characters, and because some Fangojis lean more towards xenofictic territory, xenofiction is a genre of science fiction where you read through the POV of a non-human character, it's easy to place human emotions, events, and feelings onto them. Sometimes, though, when adding elements of trauma or awful events in general, people can get a bit carried away, and I mean that in a very, very bad way. I've noticed that people will add in traumatic events for their characters as an extra draw or appeal, and there's nothing wrong with that until that's literally all there is to that character. If you know me, I like to talk about character writing a lot, a ton even, and I can say with certainty that your character's trauma does not and should not define their entire character. Trauma is a seasoning of character creation. You can add as much as you want, but if you don't have a meal or if your meal is undercooked, no one's going to want to eat it. You can add buckets and buckets of trauma and despair and agony onto your character all you want, but if your character is not written or executed well at all, then it does not matter. From personal observation, the Fangoji community tries to one-up each other or grab the attention of others through the use of writing in trauma. And as someone with trauma, heck, for anyone with trauma that affects them on a daily or frequent basis, adding a ton of trauma to a character without the work to show for it quickly becomes insensitive and distasteful. When you don't try to write a character and instead focus on how much popularity that character can garner for you, it's never going to bode well. When writing stories that focus on trauma, you also have to focus on the effects of that trauma and how that character deals with it. Without an attempt to create a genuine story, people will not want to follow it. A concept or an idea can only get you so far. When writing serious topics into your stories, you have to take your time and consider absolutely every aspect of your character in order to make it work. If you rush into things expecting your ideas to work out without effort, it gives off the impression that you're not writing out of the need to tell a story you want to tell, and rather a story you think others want you to tell. Trauma only gets you so far. You need the complexity. If you can't write trauma or serious topics at all, either stay away from it, stick with what you can write, or do your research. My tangent is over. Roleplaying and by extension, dialogue exchanges are the most popular examples of prose within the Fangoji community, and it's easy to see why. You have the opportunity to not only make friends through roleplays, but also explore how your own character would react to meeting another Fangoji. It allows for a chance to practice characterization skills in a mostly relaxed environment, and is overall a fun time. And yet, the constant want for validation continues to rear its ugly head. Again, these are from my personal experiences, as this likely does not happen in every roleplay. But I need to talk about how the want to be liked overrides consistent character writing. Of course, people are going to God mod, one-hit KO, dodge roll attacks, whatever, the usual. But a case I've found specific to this fandom, I have no idea if this is present in other communities because of the fact that this community was the one to bring me back into roleplay in the first place, is the way everyone will place specific characters and their creators, but later on that, on pedestals and treat them as these almost untouchable figures that they need to strive to interact with in order to be considered a quote-unquote good writer or someone who's with the big creators now or some other motive. The constant want for the validation of internet strangers takes over wanting to have fun, so the roleplay becomes less of a way for characters to interact freely and have their separate personalities make an interesting story, and becomes more of a morality contest where people compete to be the most morally superior so they can appeal to the people they want to interact with. That's really most of what I want to say on roleplaying, and I've had a few times that are far more specific than what I've talked about, with my own Fangoji's character in particular being ridiculed nearly every time I would try and use him, which ultimately took the fun out of it. But you know what else takes the fun out of literally everything ever to exist? That's right, everybody, a popularity contest. It's almost like Fangoji creators are obsessed with unneeded validation and attention from strangers on the internet. It's almost like all of these separate factors come together to create one huge problem within the community. Oh my gosh. On a more serious note, I've had multiple people in this fandom treat me not as a person that is very awesome and cool and has her own merits, but rather it's someone they can use for personal gain. Whether it be for art, or my attention, or not even me, but using me as a stepping stool to get to other people who have larger accounts than I do, they have wrung me dry. And I just want to say, if you are a young artist whose biggest goal is to become extremely popular and well-liked, then number one, please draw and create and write for yourself, not for an audience. Stop worrying about how many likes a post gets, because frankly, it does not matter. At the end of the day, if you have a few friends or even yourself to gas up what you do, then you don't need anyone else. And if your goal is to become best friends with the quote-unquote popular people within your fandom, then stop. The people you look up to are just like you. They're people with their own thoughts, feelings, and interests, and they are not there to be a goal or an icon in your account. You cannot force a friendship, and worming your way into one is one of the worst things you can possibly do. Number 2, be a decent person and listen to your friends when they're giving you advice. If your aim is to be liked by everyone, then that's not only impossible, but the fastest way to make no one like you is to shove people away because you believe the popular accounts are worth more of your attention. I know a lot of people in the Fangoji community are teenagers, including myself, so I feel like it's even more important that I share my thoughts because popularity is not everything. You don't need internet validation to be happy because at the end of the day, a hit tweet or post on social media is not going to change the way you feel about yourself. Only you can do that. Also, small thing I wanted to shove in pretty last minute that I'm not sure if it's anywhere in the rest of the video, but when a person does not own the concept of a Fangoji, I don't know why I have to say this, but I've seen a few people want to explore different ideas and concepts on a Fangoji. Other people will say something like, oh, but Blink already did it, so... As if that makes the idea less interesting. Newsflash, just because you came up with an original Fangoji concept doesn't mean you own it. And it especially has nothing to do with whether it can be executed well or not. If two characters manage to share design aspects or are very similar, then I'm not going to care because as long as it's written well, then the idea itself doesn't matter. Adding on to this though, this is more of a personal grievance, but I've seen people with more than one Fangoji do this thing where they make a cool new design just to say they did it first and then they leave it in the dirt forever and not even give them a story or anything. It's just to say they did it first, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for managed to get through this entire video despite my poor audio quality and editing skills. The subject specifically has bugged me for a while now, so much so that I managed to get the script finished within the span of 2 days, and now that I've typed it all out, I just found out that this is just a general issue within our communities. I became very motivated after I saw how Ravioli was being dragged on twitter.com, and so I decided that I was going to finish this video because he's literally right. Giving a special thanks to Cal and Cani, I'll link their Twitter accounts, because they've had to hear me be pissed off about this for maybe the better part of 2.5 months at this point, so I'm just glad I can tell my thoughts out loud because I'm sure I was getting pretty annoying. You two are awesome and you should really keep that up. Anyways, if you want to drag me on twitter.com or in the comments of this video, feel free to. And if you think I messed up on something, or if you just want to add your own personal experiences, whether it be in the Fangoji community or in the art community itself, feel free to do so. I know I missed a lot of things that are, I don't know how to word this. I know I missed a lot of things because if I included literally every single personal thing that has happened to me, this video would never end. So I just wanted to keep it concise and get my point across that validation and internet strangers' attention do not matter and should not matter to you if you are in an art space. You should be there to have fun and not stress yourself out with something so juvenile.